First off, hello, my name is Hunter. I apologize for not being able to be there tonight. I do have some other stuff going on this evening, which is kind of funny because I did call this like community and fellowship kind of a message, and then I kind of miss out in the community and the fellowship. So that's on me. I apologize for that. But yeah, no, let me give you a little bit of explanation on who I am as a person, a little intro. For any of you who don't know me, so first off, welcome. I really appreciate that you all made some time to be here on a Friday night. I know it's a little bit different, but then again, COVID really kind of took away Friday night plans from a lot of us. Anyway, I'm a senior here at Oakland. I'm studying exercise science with a concentration in pre-physical therapy. I guess my latest big news is that I got accepted into Oakland University's graduate school for doctorate of physical therapy, so I'll be around for the next like 5 years, so that's exciting. Honestly, it's super cool that the things that I feel like God's called me to do, He's kind of fulfilling now, and it's just really awesome to know that the God that I serve does have a plan for me, and I hope that you guys can find a little bit of encouragement in that. But that's not the whole point in this intro. So real quick, I want to talk about Young Life and kind of give you a little bit of a info session real fast before I hop into the word and what I want to talk about today. And it's kind of like my vision for it. And our goal for you guys is to be able to come to a place, whether that's in person this year or as like a hangout or in small groups or in large group like this, and come to a point where you guys can find a community outside of whatever else you're plugged into. So whether you're at home, whether you're on campus, whether you're driving in the car and tuning into to our messages or our small group or large group, just want you to know that like you are welcome here, you are loved, you are cared for, and that I can speak for myself and for every other leader that I know in Young Life here, and almost every other person that I know that goes to Young Life, and say that we love you, this community loves you. We might not all know each other very well, but that is something that we're hoping to accomplish later, is to get to know each other better. But no, we can start hopping into what I have prepared today. So the standard thing that I feel like a lot of people ask when school starts up again is, dude, how was your summer? And if I'm being honest with you and being a little bit vulnerable with you, I'm going to say it real and say my summer sucked. It really sucked. And I'm not saying that for like sympathy or for like, oh, Hunter's going to be fine. Because the fact of the matter was, it was fine. But just being real with you guys, because I do like to come up here and be real and to be vulnerable with you all. Because I feel like that's some of the best ways you can learn is from other people's stories. And when I say my summer sucked, I mean like it sucked, man. Like I had 2 jobs, my own doing, obviously. And some stuff going on at home that I wasn't too fond of. I was getting really separated from God from just being so busy all the time. I was doing some research. I was, trying to stay working in person, but I hated sitting online for my work that was online, and it was just really brutal. And then on top of that, I took like some summer classes. Chem 2, man, don't ever take it over half of a summer. It's not worth it. It sucks. But we made it through, God willing, and here we are on the other side of it. And I think if I had to pinpoint what the hardest part of it was for me personally, I would say it was isolation. Because I mean, I'm pretty sure that you guys have heard the cliche sayings of, like COVID sucks and like all these bad things COVID took away from us. But I think the biggest thing that was brought around with COVID was isolation. And I believe that's why summer probably sucked for everybody. And isolation's a brutal thing, because you don't have anyone, you don't go anywhere, and it's really hard to find joy in isolation. And that's why I want to talk about community today, because I want to talk about what God has to say about that. So if you have your Bible in front of you or the app or whatever, you can go ahead and pull that up. If not, I'm going to read you this passage. It's Hebrews 10, verses 23 through 25. I'm going to go ahead and start here, and it says, starting in verse 23, "Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet with one another, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more so as you see the day drawing near." So let me give you a little bit of my SparkNotes version of it. I'll give you a quick little synopsis and then kind of dive into it a little bit more, and we'll talk about some practical steps and some things that I saw and things that spoke to me while I was reading that. I think when you just look at it in a broad overview, you see faith, works, encouragement, self, and community. If you look into it a little bit slower version of that is you see faith, and you see some really awesome encouragement that is given to us, saying it's kind of like a direction or a command saying hold fast to the confession of the hope that we live with without wavering. And that's the hard part, especially in isolation, without wavering. Because why? It's because he who promised us this hope that we have, he who promised us is faithful. And that is some wonderful encouragement. If you're looking for something to be encouraged by today, is the God that we're serving, the God that is so good, so amazing, is also so faithful to everything that you're going through, to everything that you are, all your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations. God is faithful through it all. So that's the first thing I see. And I see that when you do that, it then leads to works, because then after you start considering holding fast to the confession of your faith, it says, then let us consider how to stir up one another to love and to good works. And then you can see how that starts going into an encouragement. So by your works, considering how to stir one another up to love and good works, you're starting to encourage them by meeting together with them and encouraging one another. And then that encouragement then leads back to yourself, because when you encourage others, it tends to come back to you. And as you pour more into others, God tends to pour more into you, and you get closer with God. And then you have a greater sense of self and a sense of self-love with God, and you have others encouraging others. So you can see that faith leads to works, which leads to encouragement, which then leads to self and to community, which then feeds all back into a wonderful cycle where you keep getting encouraged, which then you can keep pouring out into more people and encouraging more people. So that's what I see real quick in there, and that's my Hunter Sparknose version of it. So like I said, it's a very beautiful cycle where you get to encourage yourself by spending time with God and holding fast to the faith that you profess. And then you get to stir up others to do wonderful things. And when they're starting to do wonderful things, it stirs you back up and brings you back to encouragement again, which then can bring you to encourage more people. And you can see how I can get pretty excited about this. So my perfect vision for this passage and the way it's applicable to this day and age is to have so many people on fire in their faith, but you cannot help but spread it. I know, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, maybe fire wasn't the best thing to use with like things going on in Oregon. But I guess like if you look at it, like all that wood there was really dry and ready to catch on fire. And I think, I guess to turn a bad analogy into a not as bad analogy, I think a lot of our souls are ready and willing just for that flame to catch. Man, I feel isolation put a damper on all of it, and we've kind of just been sitting there, just waiting a little bit, waiting for a little bit of a spark. And as soon as someone pours into you, I'm guaranteeing that, like, if you just accept that encouragement, spend some time with God, man, your fire's gonna kick right back in, and then you have no choice but to spread that, because I mean, that fire is a God fire, and you can't really do anything about that except for spread it, because God's just too good, man. But yeah, I'm looking into a couple steps that I think this passage can be applied through. My first step that I came up with, or that kind of came to me, was really simple, but spend some time with God. And like I said, it sounds very easy, it sounds very obvious, but it's also extremely hard. I'll be real with you, this summer I sucked at it. I really did. I went through weeks of spending every single day like an hour in the morning in the Bible and in prayer, and it was great. And then I went through weeks where I don't even think I touched my Bible, and that's hard. It's really hard when things are falling or failing all around you, and especially when the school year starts picking up. Like, man, I've fallen off my regular routine a lot this year, and it's only 3-4 weeks into the semester, and there's just more stuff to come. And I can just be honest with you and say that we all know the importance of spending time with God. We get encouragement. We find who we are. Jesus can uncover things in our life. We can bring things to him. We can feel the release of the things that bring us stress in life and that cause us to cut the time out with God if we simply spend a little bit more time with him. So time with God solidifies your faith, uncovers the things that we tend to hide in ourselves, and gives us new purposes to live our lives day and day again. So step one, spend some time with God. Please, I'm begging you. If that's the only thing that you get out of this entire message, is spend some time with God. Please. Step two, be intentional. Again, another super simple instruction, but at the same time, it requires a really large amount of effort. I work in a PT clinic, and I think I can't even tell you how many conversations I've had about COVID. As like I worked through the entirety of COVID at the clinic. And I will say the one thing that I do think, if I had to pick out my favorite thing that COVID brought people, was the opportunity and the need and the necessity for people to be intentional. Because intentionality can be as simple as texting someone you haven't talked to in a minute. Say someone crosses your mind, instead of being like, I wonder how these people are doing, or I wonder how this dude's doing. Why don't we just text them, ask them, be intentional. It can be walking outside with someone who's stuck inside all day, or someone who's in a mood, or someone who needs to get some time away from their screens or doesn't get out too much. Intentionality can be literally anything at all times. Because intentionality isn't an action, it's a mindset, and it's your heart behind the actions you're doing. Intentionality can be staying up way past your bedtime when someone needs you. Intentionality can just be that simple call or that text, checking in on someone you don't ever get to talk to. Because you saw in the passage we've been talking about, but because we're called to stir one another up to love and good works. Be intentional. Stir someone else up. Get them going for God, man. Get their fire started. Because who knows what can happen? Who knows the lives you can change? Who knows? Maybe you're stirring up someone's life who and then will save hundreds of people. We don't know, but God does, and God's commanding us. Go ahead and stir other people up to love and good works. And then try not to neglect to meet together, because that's also something they say. Meet with each other. Granted, this time, day and age, a little bit harder to do, but we do have it. You guys are watching right now. We're meeting together. It's technology. Great. Anyway, I can go on for a long time about that. But step 3, this is something that's really important to me, like I've mentioned a couple times now, but be a little bit vulnerable this year. That's something I really want you guys to do in community, is to be a little bit vulnerable. I will admit that I know this is very hard for some people to do. I also will admit that for myself, I tend to be a little too vulnerable too often. That's my personal conviction, I guess. I love to be vulnerable. And let me tell you why. And maybe this might cause you guys to shift a little bit on how you view your story and the things you've gone through. I personally view God as an author. So I view my life as a book, right? So if I'm opening a book, this is Hunter's book. Hunter didn't write the book. God wrote the book where the lead character is Hunter. And I like to view each season of my life as a chapter, right? If that makes sense. And if God is my author and I'm just along for the ride, which when you're letting God control your life, I kind of just am. But when I'm just along for the ride of whatever God wants me to do, man, He's writing my story. He's the one authoring all these pages. And if there's something in these pages that can help somebody else through the chapter that they're going through in the book that God's writing for them, for sure, read this book. I don't care what it is. You ask me a question. If I think that it's something that can help you out, it's yours. Go ahead, read it. Because in the essence is this book might be about me and my life, but I didn't write it and I'm not in control of it. So here you go. You have my pages if you need them. And I think that's something that I don't know when that occurred, when that shift changed in my head, but I think it's a kind of a cool way to look at it. Look at your story, to know that your story can be more than just something that hurts you or something that's happened to you, but it can be something that can affect others for good. So I challenge you to open up your books a little bit more this year. Maybe allow some other people's finished stories or finished seasons or chapters to impact how you're looking at the current season or chapter you're going through. I know I talked about a little bit earlier about my summer and how much it sucked. That doesn't seem like it was that much, right? I was just being honest with you. But sometimes vulnerability is just being a little bit honest. Because now you know how crappy my summer was. Now you know a little bit more about me. You know a little bit more about the things that I'm doing, a little bit more about the things I pour myself into, right? That's just a little bit of vulnerability that can go so much more, because now you guys can talk to me about any of those things, and I know that you know that because I just shared it with you, and now you know that that I am willing to be vulnerable about whatever it is. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you, God, for being faithful, because that is something that we can all hold fast to. That even through that crap of a summer that most of us probably had, here we are, we're still meeting. We're still starting school, which we were all pumped for, but even though school's a little bit weird still, not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of it, but we realize that there's more than one person going through the same chapter of life right now, this isolated, hard time. And I'm encouraging you all to be a little bit vulnerable, to be intentional, and to spend some time with God this year. And I think that there's a lot that can happen with that. It's something that I feel like I really need to say when I was prepping this, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but like, if anyone's zoned out, if you could zone in really quick for me, you are not a burden, nor are the things that you are going through, nor is the stuff that has happened to you in your past, or the thoughts that are going through your head. They are not burdens. They might be burdens to you, but you are not a burden to anybody else. You know why? Galatians 6:2. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way fulfill the law of Christ. If there's one verse that I think best summarizes how I want to try to live my life, it's that verse right there. Honestly, it is the signature line on my email, because when I realized I'm a senior and applying to grad schools, I'm like, shoot, I have to have a little signature thing, because that's how they're going to remember me. Like, how do I want to be seen? Do I want a cool quote? I'm like, no, I need a verse, because I'm a Christian. And I was like, well, what verse? There's a lot of them. And that's the one that I came up with. That's the one that hit my heart the most. It's because when you realize that there are so many people out there who think their lives and their stories are burdens to other people, and they don't share and they stay hurting, that breaks my heart. Just know that you are not a burden. And if you do let your burdens go and let other people help you through them, we get fulfilled, and we fulfill the law that Christ has called us to live. And I don't think there's anything more beautiful than that. Healing on your end and fulfillment on mine, come on. It's a win-win for both of us. Because, like, I'm fulfilling the law of Christ, you're sharing your burdens, so you get a little bit closer to God, you feel some relief, and then in turn, you can carry other people's burdens, and then you get blessed too. Come, let's do that more often, please. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of where I was thinking, like, I don't know. Someone told me to share that, so that was my little ramble there. But I know it's kind of getting a little bit later now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here and ask, how can you be intentional and connected this year? Because this was a message on community, a little bit message on like fellowship and how to love on others and be intentional. And I want you guys to know that like we have small groups, we have hangout times coming up. You can FaceTime all of us. We can use Zoom more often. We have large groups. We have intentional conversations. We have so many things. And I just want you guys to know that, like, don't hesitate to get involved and get connected, because it's so hard if you're by yourself. And you all know what I'm talking about. You truly do. So don't let that happen to you again, because that's where the devil loves to work, is when you're by yourself and you don't have people around you. I don't want people to be isolated anymore. I think life has done that enough to all of us unintentionally, and I imagine this school year, like my imagination here is saying that, like, look, I think this school year has so much potential to gain intentional, beautiful, and amazing connections with so many people, and gaining so much friends and community, so much more than we can even do in person when we took it for granted. I think there's so much possibility this year, and I'm encouraging you all to take a step in that. So I love you guys. I want you guys to know, if you ever need anything, my phone is pretty much always on me. As much as I'm trying to stop that, it's pretty much always on me. So you can DM me on what do you call it, Group Me, if you need me. If you have my number, you can text me. If you need my number, you can ask me. You can get a hold of any of the leaders at any time. Because just know that, like, while we all might be busy students as well, going through a lot, I can speak for all of us to say that we will make time for you all, because we love you all as brothers and sisters in Christ. And you are someone who's in need, and that's exactly what we're called to do, is help those who need us. So that said, I'll see you guys later. I love you all. Again, I'm sorry for not being there tonight, but I really hope that something in this message helped. I'm posting these on YouTube, and I think that's how they're showing you this. So if you ever need to get these messages, you can just like look up my name, Hunter Schultz, on YouTube, and you should be able to find it. If you want to watch it again, or if you want to share it with somebody, You can be like, yo, what's Young Life do? You can just show them a video, and this is kind of how I talk all the time. So that said, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys, hopefully next week. Hopefully the school schedule won't be as hectic for me next week, but love you all. Have a wonderful night. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and just be intentional with someone this week. Oh, spend some time with God. All right, boys. See you later. Bye.